What is up, casuals? It is Tuesday, June the 4th. If you are new here, I am Nerdy D, the voice of the casual wrestling fans, and this is the Casual Wrestling Daily Show, where we drop in each and every day to talk about the biggest things going down in pro wrestling. We have officially been approved to stream the show live on TikTok daily. So you might notice a slight little bit of a change to the format of the show, nothing too drastic. We'll still be talking about all the same things that we love to talk about. It just may be formatted a little differently to suit the live audience. We are aiming to start that next Monday if all goes well. We'll be doing a few tests the rest of the week to see how Streamlabs likes dual streaming to YouTube and TikTok. Because if we're going to be live on TikTok, we might as well be live on YouTube as well. Not everybody loves TikTok. It'll change the schedule just a little bit. Mondays will still be a daily show. Instead of having a daily show on Tuesday, Mike and D would be live Tuesday nights. And then there would be a daily show on Wednesday, Thursday, and then Champ and the Chick on Friday. So not a big change, just a few things to look forward to. Also want to reiterate, I got the opportunity to sit down and shoot the shit with retired pro wrestler Sledge. Cool ass dude. We talked about AEW. We talked about WWE. I got some cool behind the scenes stories and insights that is being edited as we speak, and that is going to drop as a special Thursday edition of the Casual Wrestling Daily Show. So look out for that. But new format today. Top 5 topics, daily rundown, news and reviews, all in one place. Let's jump right into it. So the Liv, Dom, and Rhea love triangle story is officially hit full steam. It's taking center stage on Monday Night Raw. And I have to say, don't hate it, don't love it. I think I'm slightly conflicted with the results of what's happening because of it. But I mean, this is what we're in. This is what we've been asking for. On one hand, this is the fun, over-the-top storytelling that we've wanted to go back to. We claimed we wanted the Attitude Era. This is that type of story. This is that over-the-top love triangle that we all kind of fell in love with. And I guess now we got to see if that's still what we want. But on the other hand, we don't need this storyline to dominate a 3-hour episode of Monday Night Raw and overshadow our world champion. Because any of the IWC who has complained about the way Rhea Ripley has been booked, where she was not actually a part of the women's division, well, here we go again, guys. And it's going to be even worse this time. It looks like we're going to skip any meaningful title shots for Liv Morgan, and we are just going to insert her into the Judgment Day storyline, and we are going to just set the destination for Rhea Ripley, and we are going to head straight to SummerSlam, and it's another world championship that's going to be bogged down in kind of an outside bullshit. This storyline absolutely minimizes the ability for Liv Morgan to have meaningful title shots. It also, though, minimizes the opportunity for Liv Morgan to screw up, which I think is probably Triple H's line of thinking. But here is my big issue, because I see people love this. There's a lot of people who love this storyline, and I don't hate it, but I have an issue with it. This storyline is absolutely designed to play into every little horny IWC basement rat's darkest fantasies. This idea that Liv Morgan is sexually aggressive and she's going to corner the beta male Dominic Mysterio and harass him and kind of go after him, and we don't know if he wants it. We do know if he wants it. He's smiling, but Finn Balor's stepping in the way. Like, where the fuck is the outcry from all of these IWC White Knights now? All of these guys who run to the defense of women, and where's the outcry for this storyline? Like, the fact that they can vision themselves in Dominic Mysterio's shoes, they don't have a problem with it. And I don't have a problem with it. This is wrestling. This is what wrestling's supposed to be. But where are these white knights who typically would have a problem with this storyline? I can tell you where they are. They're currently yeeting in their pants. That's what's happening. And here's the other issue I have, is this story could have worked minus the title. We didn't need to tie up another world title in a storyline that's going to keep the champion away from actual wrestling. Let's reserve the titles for the workhorses, and let's let Liv Morgan, this is a great story for Liv Morgan, but let's let her work these kind of things without holding up a world title. My biggest gripe here is that we are 1 week out from Clash at the Castle, and Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest felt like an absolute afterthought. We got the last 5 minutes of the show. We got the most interesting person we have on Monday Night Raw, Drew McIntyre. That's it. Last 5 minutes, we get to see it. Oh, and he ends up laying on the ground. Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest should be the most promoted match on the card heading into Scotland. Instead, the night was completely overshadowed by LWO, Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio, and the outskirts of the Judgment Day. I'm just afraid that Triple H is falling back into, he has a little bit of a tendency to let himself start to pay attention to what the minority loud IWC starts screaming. And when they start screaming about Liv Morgan, I'm just afraid that it builds up a false sense of confidence in Liv Morgan from Triple H, where he goes, oh, we can manage these shows. I will tell you, as far as Monday Night Raw goes, that was not my favorite Monday Night Raw. I don't think it was bad. I think my level of expectation has definitely changed in the Triple H regime, but that one wasn't my favorite. That one that featured a ton of Liv Morgan and a ton of LWO was definitely not a Nerdy D Monday Night Raw. But the big issue I see coming down the pipeline is that when Rhea Ripley shows back up, she is going to completely expose the flaws of Liv Morgan's talent. Like, Liv can't out-wrestle Rhea Ripley. She can't out-talk Rhea Ripley on the microphone. And as much as the internet smarks want to believe that they love Liv Morgan, we have to remember everybody loves mommy. Casual fans, smarks, IWC, everybody loves mommy. So if there is some major plan to have Liv Morgan run through Rhea Ripley, which I hope is not the plan, but I fear there might be this idea that they can get some extra juice out of this, it scares me. It's really going to expose who Liv Morgan is. It will be interesting, though, to see how this affects Damian Priest going forward, because we felt like coming out of WrestleMania that the Judgment Day's numbers or days were kind of numbered, and now it feels like we're just starting the next chapter. We're just doing, it's like they saw what happened with the Bloodline, and they're like, oh, we can take these factions and milk them for chapter after chapter after chapter. And while I do believe that this is probably leading to a split of Rhea going her own way and Damian going his own way and seeing a new semblance of the Judgment Day, I'd rather, like, let's get Finn out of there too. Finn needs to be doing his own thing. Finn is too good to be an NPC in a Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio storyline. But now that we only have 1 week to make, Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest feel credible, it scares me that this is maybe a little bit of an afterthought, that, they leaked some information here, they do this. But on the flip side of that, I'm starting, for some weird reason, I'm starting to get the vibes based on the ending of Monday Night Raw, based on the leaked images we got on the internet of a title match between Damian Priest and Jey Uso at like Madison Square Garden. I'm starting to believe we may be getting swerved here. I'm starting to get this little itch inside me that says Drew McIntyre may be winning the title at Clash at the Castle. 2 years in a row, man. I don't know if you can do it. I don't know if you can have Drew McIntyre lose 2 years in a row on home turf. I don't see how you can do it. And we know ultimately that Damian Priest is dropping this title. Like, the run is coming to an end. Somebody's going to get in his way. He's not beating Gunther at SummerSlam. So now there's no time better than now to pull the trigger. And the optics of finishing Scotland with Drew McIntyre holding the World Heavyweight Championship, those optics are beautiful. And maybe CM Punk's not ready for SummerSlam. Maybe CM Punk's still working. Maybe the plan is to have CM Punk cost Drew McIntyre that title at SummerSlam, and then going forward, we begin this beautiful long run of CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Topic number 2. So there's this story floating around that the wrestler formerly known as Elias claims that he originally pitched the idea for the Monday Night Messiah character, and it was stolen by Vince McMahon and Seth Rollins. This is going around. I don't know validity. I'm not a reporter. I'm not doing journalism. I'm just going to talk about it. And here's my issue. I have no clue if this is true or not. But for the sake of stirring the pot, let's just pretend it's true. That's what we do here. Let's just pretend this is true. It feels like the kind of thing that Elias would come up with. It feels like the track that his character was on. But let's just say for the sake of argument, Seth Rollins and Vince McMahon sat down in a room and they took the gimmick. They go, we love this, not for him. We're going to give it to Seth and we'll let Seth run with it. Does this change the way we have to view the career of Elias? Do we have to take a deeper look at how Elias was treated during his run with WWE? Because look, the Elias character was over. Fans loved it. Vince McMahon did not know what to do with it, but the fans loved it. They liked the singing. He needed to wrestle more, but that's a booking issue. But he got that character over. Then they switched him over to a bullshit character, Ezekiel, right? Had no shot. That character had no shot, but what did he do? He got it over. With the help of Kevin Owens, they immediately got that character over. And once again, WWE panicked, didn't know how to book it, and it ultimately led to Elias / Ezekiel being let go from the company. Let's just pretend that the Messiah character was created by Elias, and he actually gets to play that character. That's 3 for 3. We're talking 3 for 3 on major gimmicks. And I know that you can't guarantee that the Messiah character has success. I know we can't, but it feels like that was in the Elias kind of will, whatever you want to call it. It's in his repertoire to make that successful. That was kind of the character that I always felt like he was leaning to, and instead Seth Rollins took it. And I know not everybody views the Messiah character favorable for Seth Rollins, but I think it's because that wasn't his gimmick. I don't know that he was all in on it. I think that Elias probably could have done a better job than Seth Rollins did with that gimmick. I think we at least have to entertain the idea that Vince McMahon and WWE robbed us of a great gimmick belonging to a guy that I actually think could have done it justice. I have a list of guys that I talk about every so often that I think are guys that I think WWE dropped the ball with. And I will add Elias now to that list because this makes me a little sad that we didn't get to see the vision that Elias had for his character. But I have guys like Dolph Ziggler, Damian Sandow. There's a couple of the names on that list. But here's a quick way to fix this, Triple H. Let's just bring him back. Go pluck him from whatever he's doing. I know he's reading the Bible and stuff on TikTok. Let's bring him back. KO doesn't really have anything that important going on. And let's get the proper ending to the Ezekiel Kevin Owens story. And then let's get Elias back and let's get the ball rolling back on that. Last night on Raw, we got to see more cracks in the Alpha Academy. And our man Chad Gable is cooking. No doubt about it. Chad Gable right now, there's no better heel in the industry than Chad Gable. And so we got to talk about this contract situation because I know I was pretty confident about it earlier in the week, but this is a dangerous game that Triple H is playing. If this contract situation is actually what's being reported, and on Saturday, Chad Gable becomes a free agent and the world is allowed to bid on Chad Gable, Triple H is playing with fire. I get that Triple H probably has all the assurances in the world. Gable has probably told Triple H, I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. This is where I want to be. We don't even really need to worry about it. But until the ink dries on the dotted line, there's always a chance. There's always a chance. And when that nutbag Tony Khan is running around handing out $15 million a year contracts to guys like MJF, you can't count on the fact that he does not swoop in at the 11th hour with some ridiculous offer to try to steal your guy away. Tony Khan's life thrill is announcing he has an announcement. You don't think he'll overpay for that? You don't think Tony Khan would overpay for the opportunity to have a new, shiny Chad Gable action figure? Gable's improving week after week. And you don't think Tony Khan would overpay to have that guy on his roster? He fits everything that AEW loves. But the true value of a heel, contrary to what the internet smarks think they know, the true value of a heel is not to be Billy Badass, but it's to put the baby face over. That's Gable, man. Right now, Gable is setting up our boy Otis for a huge momentum swing, for a huge babyface turn. The moment that Otis finally turns is going to feel like Sami Zayn. You usually can't catch lightning in a bottle twice, but Triple H has figured out the formula to be able to pull at the casual wrestling's heartstrings. Can you imagine, though? Like just take a second. Can you imagine come Saturday, the contract expires and we get robbed of this payoff, of this Otis and Alpha Academy storyline? Like, quit bullshitting TKO, quit bullshitting WWE, quit bullshitting Triple H. Just pay Chad Gable. Just ease our tensions here. Get the contract signed so we can continue enjoying. Speaking of being paid, we got to talk about this. The word on the street right now is that MJF is under AEW contract for roughly $15 million a year. $15 million a year. We have to put that into context. For the other casual fans out there, I did some research. And remember, my research skills, not great. They consist of asking ChatGPT a couple things, doing a couple Googles. But from the best of my Googling skills, I was able to estimate that guys like Seth Rollins and Randy Orton bring in a base salary of about $4.5 million a year. That means MJF is 3 times more valuable than Randy Orton and Seth Rollins. Roman Reigns brings in about $5 million a year base salary. That means that Tony Khan values him 3 times more than Roman Reigns. And Brock Lesnar brings in around $12 million a year. That means that Tony Khan values MJF at a higher rate than Brock Lesnar. Tony Khan has legitimately made MJF the highest paid professional wrestler of all time. And don't get me wrong, he had to do it. There was no other option for Tony Khan. This confirms what I've been saying for the last 6 months. The number that Tony Khan gave to MJF had to be so high that MJF couldn't look at all of the external other things like WrestleMania and being a part of WWE. He couldn't look at all those things, and the allure couldn't be bigger than the number that Tony Khan dropped. And Tony Khan dropped a big number. MJF could not say no. That number had to be so high that WrestleMania became an afterthought. That number had to be so high that to celebrate, you go get a AEW tattoo on your calf. The reality is, once again, this is a put up or shut up moment for Tony Khan. If MJF got to walk out that door and he goes to WWE, that was it. That was the end of AEW. I know the IWC doesn't like to hear that, but you couldn't survive that. You then become just a second-rate company who is a talent pool for WWE to pick and choose. Tony Khan had to pay MJF to keep the lights on in the building. But here's my argument for Tony Khan. You pay a guy $15 million, he better wrestle every week. Like, no more of this MJF just shows up for pay-per-views. If I'm paying you $15 million, MJF, you're on the show every week doing something spectacular. Like, MJF, as much, and I am a big MJF guy, he doesn't have the Brock Lesnar appeal. Nobody has the Brock Lesnar appeal, but MJF doesn't have the Brock Lesnar appeal. You can't just write his name on the marquee and fans show up. He's got to give people a reason to be there. And serious question, do you think Tony Khan, when he was sitting down to decide what he's going to pay MJF, do you think a question ever popped into his mind like, should I shoot this offer to Brock Lesnar? Should I just shoot $15 million over to Brock Lesnar and see if he would entertain it, if there's any way he could get out of a WWE contract, or if he would entertain it when his WWE contract's over. I just wonder if that was Tony Khan's mindset. Like, if I want an announcement, this is the announcement of all announcements. Or did he think MJF is the guy? 15 million, more than Brock Lesnar. It's all worth it. Let's do it. Here's the financial issue moving forward. This is the real problem for Tony Khan moving forward. It is likely now that MJF is the highest paid male wrestler in professional wrestling. And Mercedes Moné is more than likely the highest paid female in professional wrestling. And your ratings are still they're not ticking in the right direction. And when you have the two highest paid on each end of the spectrum, you've got to figure something out. Where do you go? You're putting yourself from a business standpoint. This is not a great argument to make. When you sit down with WB and TNT to negotiate TV rights deals, because I always get this like, AEW's fine. They're doing fine in the key demo. If they're doing fine, the TV deal would be done. Like, let's be real honest. Tony Khan's not sitting around slow playing this TV deal. He's not getting the offer that he wants. And so he is negotiating over and over to try to convince, now MJF's re-signed. But the problem is that TNT and WB has to look at these numbers and go, that's a lot of money committed to two people. And we don't see the huge change. Now it's early on. There's still weeks to decide if this bet pays off. But if 3 weeks from now the ratings are still in that 700 to 800,000 range, WB is going to look and go, you've got a lot of money invested in something that's not paying off. We don't know if we can trust you to make these kind of decisions. Last topic today. And I don't mean to beat a dead horse. I never want this show to become the AEW diss hour, where we just sit down and we talk about Tony Khan for 30 minutes. But the reality is right now, Tony Khan's on one, right? He's going everywhere he can to try and promote AEW. And he's just dropping these little gems that I pick up and I go, I have to talk about this. I never intend when I sit down to make the notes for the show, especially coming off of a Monday Night Raw, I never expect like 3 of the 5 topics to be about Tony Khan and AEW. But like when he dominates the news cycle the way he does by saying these stupid things, I have to talk about it. And this time, Tony Khan was quoted as saying about Ricky Starks, I'd love to get him back involved in AEW. Tony Khan, you're the fucking boss. You're the booker. When you say shit like that, it makes me wonder what you're doing on a daily basis. What are you doing? You're sitting in your office doing the thing, running a soccer team, pretending to be a part of the Jacksonville Jaguars, sitting down to book whatever you book for AEW. Who are you talking to? Like, is this a conversation within your own head? Like, man, I'd love to get Ricky Starks back involved on television. I should go talk to somebody. Like, I don't know. Effectively, what you're saying, Tony Khan, because if we take you as not a crazy person, effectively what you're saying is Ricky Starks is done. Ricky Starks won't take your calls. Ricky Starks is tired of the AEW bullshit, and he's checked out. He doesn't want to be a part of what you're doing because what you're doing is a shit show, and he said, don't want no part of this. What this effectively says is that when Ricky Starks went to WWE to see his friends, he was taking a recruiting trip. He was going to see what the other side was like. And when he looked around and he went, oh, there's infrastructure? Oh, this shit makes sense? People aren't fighting? Oh, okay. I'm done. I don't need to do what the other company's doing. I'll just wait until I can sign my contract over here. He probably looked around WWE and was just like, this doesn't make sense. I've talked to Cody Rhodes. He's told me how this is, but this doesn't. Where are the executive vice presidents that are back here suppressing anybody who starts to get over? I think the reality is that Tony Khan knows how good Ricky Starks is. He knows that ultimately when he looks at that, he loves the 4 pillars thing, but when he looks at his 4 pillars and he goes, Sammy Guevara, nowhere to be found. MJF, I put all my money into that account, right? Jungle Boy, he's now become part of the Mean Girls, and Darby Allin is not going to probably live past 50. Ricky Starks was that next guy. He was that next guy you should have bet on. And I think Tony Khan knows how good Ricky Starks is, and he knows Ricky Starks has 1 foot out the door, and Tony's just not going to give him any momentum as he walks out the door. He saw what happened with Ethan Page showing up on NXT. He's not going to let that happen with Ricky Starks. He's not. If you're going to go to WWE, if you're going to go to NXT, wherever you're going to end up, you're going to disappear, and we aren't going to give you a proper send-off out the door, which I understand, rightfully so. That's how you have to run a business. But this is what lack of respect and lack of infrastructure causes in a company. When you can't mend the fence with guys, when you can't pick up the phone with a guy like Ricky Starks and say, let's make this work. Maybe you're walking out the door, maybe you're not. Give me a last opportunity to book you in a way that makes you understand that we are trying to fix this company. We are trying to do things correctly. And instead, Tony just goes out on TV, and basically it becomes a pissing contest between Ricky Starks, because Ricky's saying, they're not calling me. Tony's saying, we'd love to have him involved, which means somebody's lying. And so Tony Khan should be the bigger person, be able to mend those fences with guys like CM Punk, like Ricky Starks. We assume something similar happened with Cody Rhodes. I just think that Tony Khan keeps betting on the wrong horses. Like, I know he loves the 4 pillars mantra, and I know they love to beat that to death, but like letting Ricky Starks walk out the door, I think that's ultimately going to end up being a huge mistake for AEW. But let me know your thoughts on today's episode in the comments. And while you're there, make sure to join the Casual Wrestling Club. The link is in the description of this video. Join the Casual Wrestling Discord. Thank you guys, as always, for taking the time to hang out with me. We'll talk more pro wrestling tomorrow.